off this countdown, we have arachnophobia. Okay, I swear these complex names are gonna kill me today, so if I pronounce something wrong, please just go easy on me, okay? I'm only human. Anyways, this is the fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your mouth, or the fear of being choked by peanut butter. It kind of goes hand in hand. The severity of this phobia depends on the person. Some can eat small amounts of peanut butter still, whereas others can't eat it at all and avoid anything with the consistency of peanut butter altogether. It's thought that this phobia might actually stem from a bigger phobia of things that are sticky or a fear of choking. You might develop this fear if maybe you had a bad experience with peanut butter. Maybe you almost choked on it. So I suggest maybe don't shovel spoonfuls of peanut butter into your mouth as a snack. Stick to just having it on sandwiches or with a banana and whatnot. In our 9th spot, we have ablutophobia. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then please give it a big thumbs up. Also, give me a thumbs up for attempting these pronunciations, okay guys? Hit that like button just for me. This is the fear of bathing or cleaning oneself. Now, don't get this mixed with aquaphobia, which is the fear of water. However, ablutophobia may develop as a result of aquaphobia. Anyways, this phobia often occurs in children, but they tend to grow out of it when they become older. However, there are cases of some adults having this fear. As a result, any person with this phobia will avoid bathing or showering. Hey, this fear may have been developed after a traumatic event involving water. Or maybe they are secretly a mermaid and literally can't get wet or else they will bust a tail. Moving on to number 8, we have thanatophobia. This is the fear of the color yellow. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently it is. A person with this phobia is typically afraid of anything that is yellow. Flowers, pineapple, you get it. Which is sad because this phobia interferes with their everyday life because yellow things are everywhere. The most common cause of this phobia is having a bad experience with the color. Maybe they were stung by a bee or got hit by a yellow school bus. Then they go on fearing the color yellow, like they now associate yellow with bad luck. In our 7th spot, we have nomophobia. This is the fear of numbers. This could stem from the fear of doing math or dealing with numbers, because we all know that math sucks. But did you know that there are a bunch of other phobias having to deal with specific numbers? Like octophobia, which is the fear of the number 8. People with this phobia not only fear the number 8, but also the infinity symbol, because it's an 8 sideways, if you didn't know that. This phobia might stem from some traumatic event involving the number 8. Like maybe they were involved in an accident that happened on the 8th day of a month. You get it. There's also triskaidekaphobia, which is the fear of the number 13. Again, this could be for similar reasons as I just mentioned. Or it could be that they fear the number 13 since it's associated with bad luck. Moving on to number 6, we have omphalophobia. This is the fear of belly buttons. Not gonna lie, if you really think about it, belly buttons, pretty weird. Anyways, people that have this fear are scared of seeing or touching their belly buttons or other people's belly buttons. Yeah, I'd be afraid to touch other people's belly buttons too, though. That's gross. In fact, if this phobia is on the more extreme end, they might even put a bandage over their own belly button so that they don't have to see it. They also may avoid places where belly buttons are gonna be exposed, like at swimming pools or the beach. Fun, not so fun fact, but Alfred Hitchcock had his belly button surgically removed. Not sure why, but he did. Also, I learned about that in the 5th grade, so. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with nomophobia. This is the fear of string. People with this phobia get anxious when thinking about strings or string-like objects or when they actually see them. As a result, they will avoid strings or anything to do with strings, such as sewing or tying their shoes. People with this fear may have developed it if they were ever tied up in their past. Maybe that was a punishment when they were a child. Or you can even develop this fear from watching movies or TV shows that show people tied up. Let's say their house was being robbed and they got tied up, or if they were kidnapped and then held captive. That can trigger this fear. It can stem from the fear of being tied up or restrained. Moving on to number 4, we have aerophobia. Not to be confused with the fear of airplanes or flying. Aerophobia is the fear of fresh air. Yeah, air. It's the fear of the movement of air too, like drafts or breezes. Now, here's the thing. This phobia is a symptom of rabies. So people with rabies might get muscle spasms, and I quote, an intense startling reaction when exposed to a gust of air. This is then what triggers the phobia. People with this phobia then have a fear of going outside. Moving on to number 3, we have nomophobia. Nowadays, we go everywhere with our phones. They're practically fused into our skin. Nomophobia is the fear of being without a phone. And surprise, surprise, it's a brand new phobia that's been on the rise. This phobia stems from the user having a cell phone addiction/dependency. Usually people that are constantly on their phone will develop this phobia. When they are separated from their phone, they will become anxious and nervous. Or someone with this phobia might get anxious when they lose signal or their phone runs out of battery. What's scary is that this phobia is fairly common. Where's my phone? Oh, there it is. I'm just kidding. Sorry. I'm just having fun today. In our second spot, we have urophobia. This is the fear of urine. Now, there's 2 parts to this phobia. One is the fear of pee itself, like the smell and color. The second part is the fear of urinating. Typically, if they fear pee, they won't want to pee. Other causes of this phobia are if the person experiences pain while urinating, or if they have trouble urinating. It can also develop if the person has bladder control issues. If this is the case, they might be fearful of having an accident while in public. And in our number 1 spot, we have dextrophobia. This phobia involves a fear of having objects on the right side of your body. Often people that have OCD will have this phobia. They just can't stand having things to the right of them. For example, if they're sitting on the couch watching TV, they might move the pillows and the remote to the left side of their body so that there's nothing on the right. But having this phobia might make it hard for the person to drive. If they are in the left lane, they might get very anxious about all the cars to the right of them. Starting off this countdown, we have syngensophobia. You won't believe what this phobia is about. Comment down below and take a wild guess. Syngensophobia is an irrational fear of your relatives. Yeah, you heard me. Now, this is a type of social phobia that falls under the category of anxiety disorders. Individuals with this phobia might experience extreme anxiety when they have to get together with their family. As a result, individuals with this phobia will try to avoid all family gatherings. Now, one can develop this phobia for a number of reasons. Maybe something traumatic happened in the family and every time you see your relatives, it reminds you of that. Or maybe you have a really toxic family and that's what brought on this anxiety. Lastly, science has shown that soap operas have caused this fear. Yeah, you heard me, soap operas. That's because in those shows, certain relatives like aunts or mother-in-laws are portrayed as evil and conniving. Maybe you have the sweetest relatives in the world, but if you watch too many soap operas, you may think that they're all out to get you. In our 9th spot, we have thanatophobia. This is the fear of hair, animal or human hair. So people with this phobia may fear people with long hair, so me, or even animals since they have hair. They may also fear hair on their own head. That's on the more extreme end of this phobia though. More commonly, they fear loose, detached hair, like going into someone's bathroom and seeing a wad of hair in their shower stall. Ugh, it's gross. Or the loose hair scattered along the deck of a swimming pool, or even finding someone's hair in your food. That just makes me sick. Anyways, this phobia might be somewhat related to the fear of head lice or dandruff. It's thought to be under the category of germophobia, the fear of germs. If they have an extreme case of this phobia, they may be obsessed with removing every hair on their body. That's pretty intense. Coming in at number 8, we have trypophobia. This fear is considered one of the most common phobias you've never heard of. Trypophobia is the fear of small, closely packed holes. I'm sure you've all seen that image of someone's hand and it has like special effects makeup on it, or it's edited to look like it has tons of these weird pores all over it. Ugh, like even that creeps me out. But people with this fear will have extreme anxiety when they see photos like that. Other things that can trigger someone with this fear are honeycombs, strawberries, pomegranates, bubbles, and cantaloupe. Now, scientists have been fascinated with this phobia. They're trying to understand what causes one to be afraid of tiny holes. In 2013, scientists suggested that maybe those with this fear subconsciously associate the holy items with dangerous animals. Like, take a look at lotus seed pods. It can be associated with blue ringed octopus because of the appearance. Or even look at alligators and crocodiles crocodiles, and even certain snakes and insects. They have a bunch of bumps or circular markings on their bodies. But a study in 2015 argued that the fear is your body's natural protective response to avoid infectious skin diseases that could damage your skin. Either way, it's a very real and scary phobia. Coming in at number 7, we have somnophobia. There's nothing I love better than plopping down after a long day and getting a nice, long, and deep sleep. But people with this phobia have a fear of sleep, which obviously is a bad fear to have since our bodies need sleep in order to function properly. People with this phobia might have panic attacks around bedtime and might force themselves to stay up as long as they can. The main cause for this phobia is if the person suffers from really bad night terrors or sleep paralysis. If they've had a number of bad experiences with those, they might not want to fall asleep. Even bad experiences with sleepwalking can trigger this phobia. Moving on to number 6, we have turophobia. This is the fear of cheese. Don't get it twisted though. Someone with this phobia isn't just like, ew, I don't like the taste of cheese. Like, no, they get full-on anxiety or panic attacks when they see or smell cheese. I understand the smell part though. Some really strong cheeses smell a bit like stinky feet. Anyways, this phobia might develop after a traumatic experience with cheese. For example, a woman named Katie Weston came forward saying she has this fear. For her, it developed after she ate string cheese as a kid and threw up immediately after. Now she can't touch cheese and certainly can't eat it. Other people who might get this phobia are people who are lactose intolerant, because eating cheese will literally cause them to become sick. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with thanatophobia. So I just talked about having a fear of your relatives. Well, thanatophobia is having an irrational fear of specifically your mother-in-law. Now, this is way different than just simply disliking your mother-in-law. People with this phobia will get severe panic attacks from having to see or talk to their mother-in-law. It is believed that hereditary, genetics, and a person's brain chemistry all contribute to this phobia. Maybe one developed this after some traumatic event occurred with their mother-in-law, or a traumatic event occurred with their own mother in their childhood. Additionally, a person might develop this phobia after meeting their mother-in-law for the first time, or even might develop it years later after already knowing their mother-in-law. Moving on to number 4, we have arachnophobia. This one is a pretty specific phobia. So it's the fear of being tickled with feathers. Yeah, specifically with feathers. Dude, I hate being tickled. Like, don't even try to dig your nasty little fingers into my belly because I will punch you. But I haven't been tickled with feathers, and frankly, I never want to be. Tickling is like this weird form of torture. Like, it hurts so much, but you can't stop laughing. Anyways, I'm rambling. Tickling someone with feathers, especially during childhood, may cause them to have a negative association with them when they're older. It will bring them back feelings of being trapped and having difficulty breathing. So let's just ban tickling altogether. It's just unnecessary. Who's with me? I'm gonna sign a petition. Coming in at number 3, we have geniophobia, aka the fear of chins. Yes, chins. It's a good thing that we have to wear masks now when we go outside. People with this phobia might experience extreme anxiety when they see a chin or even just by thinking of them. As a result, this can make social interaction very difficult, as you could only imagine. It is said that people with this phobia become fixated on people's chins. They especially don't like imperfect chins. So if your chin is too prominent, or if you have a double chin or a butt chin, this can trigger the anxiety in an individual. Now, how does one develop this fear? Well, it's believed that an injury might cause this. For example, let's say you fall down as a kid and injure your own chin. That could trigger this fear when you're older. Other than that, scientists don't really know what the main cause for this phobia is. And it's a really hard phobia to treat. In our second spot, we have thanatophobia. This is another very specific phobia, and it's the fear of being watched by a duck. Literally, it's defined as, and I quote, the fear that somewhere, somehow, a duck is watching you. People with this phobia, though, might not only fear ducks, but they may also fear other birds, like waterfowl, like geese. Don't get me started, okay? Those are aggressive. At least here in Canada, they are. Don't get in their way ever. Anyways, like most other phobias on this list, it most likely develops after having a bad experience with a duck. Maybe the individual was chased, attacked, or bitten by one. People with this phobia constantly worry about ducks, like thinking they'll just show up out of nowhere and attack you. Just watch out for geese, guys. I'm telling you that now. Watch out. I got bit by geese once. I'm not happy. And in our number one spot today, we have phobophobia. Take a wild guess at what this phobia is. It is, in fact, a phobia of having phobias. Sounds crazy, right? Like, I didn't even think this was a real thing, but indeed it is. And as you can imagine, this is a pretty complex phobia. So let's say there's something that brings you fear. Not only are you afraid of that, but then your phobia kicks in and you're afraid of the fear that you're feeling. So it's like getting hit double time with anxiety. And then you're fearing the fear that you're feeling to the fear, and it's like a vicious cycle. It's a pretty intense phobia, to say the least.
Coming in at number 10, we have hemophobia. Hemophobia is the intense fear of blood. Now, I guess we're all a bit afraid of blood. Horror movies kind of play on this, that's why slashers are so scary. But hemophobia is actually beyond being a little squeamish. A friend of my parents, a really tall man named Tommy, is like really afraid of blood. He faints at the sight of it or the mention of it, and he's a 6'6" man. He needs someone underneath him to scream, "Timber!" every time he goes down. Every time he'd come over, my mum would talk to my sister Julia and I before and be like, "Don't mention blood," so of course we would. Kids, cruel. Some people are actually really scared of blood, and I do get it. It's pretty gruesome if there's too much of it. But it can actually really get in the way of people living their lives. For example, if you're scared of blood and you get injured, it's actually quite likely that you'll faint or vomit, which means you won't be able to get the help that you need. Coming into number 9, we have trypophobia. No, I'm not here for this. How does this picture make you feel? Not good? Good? What about this one? Trypophobia is the fear of tiny holes, and it is not a fear that I had when I started Most Amazing Top 10, but it's definitely a fear that I'm taking with me as I leave. It actually makes me feel really sick. I think it's less about tiny holes themselves, but more about them in kind of clusters, like tiny little clusters. It's really distressing. The terrors of the internet have also taken great delight, as you have seen, in photoshopping holes of lotus pods onto bodies to make them look like medical disorders, and I'm stressed and creeped out and sick. Stop it! Stop it with the tiny holes. Coming into number 8, we have claustrophobia. For those that don't understand claustrophobia, then maybe it doesn't sound so bad. I don't have it badly or anything, but for me, it's less about space, more about knowing that I can get out of a situation. If I feel trapped, then I freak out. There used to be a bank vault in my old house, and at parties we'd find it really funny to lock each other in for 10 minutes at a time, but one time we couldn't get the door open, and honestly, it was awful. Oh, I'm having like palpitations thinking about it. Claustrophobia is a fear of tight spaces. It's a situational phobia triggered by an irrational fear of getting stuck, or maybe sometimes a very rational fear. It's a common phobia, one of the most common out there, and it is classified as an anxiety disorder. I feel really good now, but once when I was younger and I lived in London, my anxiety was deeply up, and I had a panic attack on a tube train when it was held at a red signal in a tunnel for 10 minutes. It's horrible. It's honestly really horrible and scary when you're living through it, as I imagine all of the phobias are. Coming into number 7, we have thanatophobia. Does anyone want to play Guess the Phobia before I tell you? Thanatophobia, anyone? I'm gonna give you 5 seconds. Okay, ready? Right, thanatophobia is the really rather reasonable fear of being buried alive, which honestly I can't think of anything too much worse. For me, it's a toss-up between being trapped in a burning house or being buried alive in terms of my most fear-invoking deaths. I really don't like the idea of being trapped in a coffin that I can't escape on. I'm not sure I could Black Mamba a la Kill Bill my way out of there. Uma Thurman really did master the punch, didn't she? These days there have actually been safety coffins developed in case anyone does find themselves 6 feet under, but that really won't help remove the crushing weight of the dirt above you. The worst thing to do if you are buried alive is panic, as you'll use up all the oxygen quicker, but honestly, what else is there to do but panic? Coming into number 6, we have thanatophobia. I am a seafarer. I am happiest by the sea. Lost at sea would be a fine way for me to go, but the thought of bodies of water does actually deeply and completely stress out a lot of people, and I guess I understand. Thanatophobia is an intense and persistent fear of the ocean. I know some people whose biggest fear is being stranded in the middle of the ocean with no hope of rescue, and I do understand because I guess the sea is a pretty wild place. Thanatophobia can affect people travelling on boats and even people just standing on the shore and freaking out. It really is too bad because the earth is 4/5 water, so, and you know, rising sea levels and all of that. Coming into number 5, we have arachnophobia. Who knows this one? This has actually been memeified and I get it. Do you know? Arachnophobia is the very real fear that somewhere out there in the world a duck or goose is watching you. Now, I don't enjoy a voyeur, especially when that voyeur is a fowl. Honestly, it's really difficult to get through some of these with a straight face. I understand a fear of webbed feet, I understand a fear of beaks, but the watchful eye of a pond dweller? Do people feel that they know something? Like, maybe they do. Maybe they're more intelligent than we give them credit for. Coming into number 4, we have astrophobia. Astrophobia is the fear of space, and by that I don't mean space as in like open space, like whoa! I mean as in the most open of all spaces, the universe. Honestly, I actually do kind of understand this. Astrophobia is influenced by the fear of the unknown, and we really don't know very much about space at all. Humans have been to the moon, but not much further. Thinking about space can actually fill a lot of people with existential dread, and I get that. Life-ending meteors, molecule-sucking black holes, perhaps even aliens. Our galaxy is one of an estimated 100 billion. We're so tiny and insignificant that it makes some people feel mentally and physically sick. I actually take some comfort in how small we are, but I guess it is scary to know that life on Earth could be so easily wiped out. Okay, this is an astrophobic's nightmare. Trigger warning. Just floating away in space until you run out of oxygen. Stressful. I think we can all agree. Coming into number 3, we have horrifying. I can understand this, especially after the 2016 incidents. Horrifying is an intense fear of clowns, and ain't nobody got time for a killer clown. Clowns were very much an 80s thing until it was remade and American Horror Story Cult came out. Thanks so much. Now we're all suffering from horrifying just a little bit. In 2016, there was an absolute onslaught of clown sightings across the USA and also many in Europe and Australia as people jumped on a trend of trying to freak people out, and I hated it. To be honest, I never liked clowns as a child. They've always seemed pretty sinister to me. Ever since I googled Pogo the clown though, my policy has been punch first, think second if a creepy clown steps into my personal space, because we just can't risk it. I know that that's no way to live, but Pogo was legit a murderer. Serial killer John Wayne Gacy used to dress up as a clown in his community and host barbecues and the like, but then he murdered over 30 people, so clowns, bad. Coming into number 2, we have cyberphobia. I actually would absolutely hate this. I love food so much. Food, glorious food, like absolutely feed me Seymour. I could literally bathe in a bathtub filled with cakes, and maybe that'll be my goal after I leave here. That's just what I'll do for a living, somehow. Oh my god, such a good idea, fill her up. Anyway, I digress. Cybophobics have a fear of food, and it can actually be very harmful to their everyday life. People who suffer from this avoid food and drinks, but the fear can be applied to specific types of food too. Now this is a separate disorder than anorexia or other disordered eating habits. Anorexics are more concerned about what food will do to their body rather than scared of food itself. But eating disorders actually can lead a person to develop cybophobia, a genuine fear of food. A cybophobic person is likely to have a panic attack around food, which is really sad. Finally, coming into number 1 of the top 10 scary phobias that you might have, we have thanatophobia. Thanatophobia is a fear of death itself. It's something that most of us will understand on some level and perhaps even mildly suffer. I know I don't like to think about death, not at all, but perhaps that's more a fear of the unknown more than anything else. A fear of dying doesn't stop me living my day-to-day life, but it would greatly hinder people who suffer from thanatophobia. It's not uncommon for people with a fear of dying to be obsessed with death and often visualize getting killed in ordinary situations day to day, which can make it pretty hard to leave the house. Death anxiety can affect people leaving the house and requires terror management.